topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Ascending, where we believe in a better life through better business. Here, we help you aspire to greatness, achieve your goals, and ascend to new heights. Whether you're starting, scaling, or exiting, we're here to empower you with inspiring stories, enlightening discussions, and transformative resources to help you accelerate your success. Now, it's time for Entrepreneurs Ascending. Hello, welcome, and it is time for Entrepreneurs Ascending, and it's time for success. And Time for Success is the parent company, of course, that produces Entrepreneurs Ascending, and I'm host Matt Barbie, and it's wonderful having you back. It's been a little while. We took a little bit of a break, and getting back into the habits and the routines of the podcast. And habits and routines are kind of what we're talking about today. We're talking about quarterly planning. And I know that might sound kind of like a boring topic, but here's the thing. I see so many people who think that leveling up is just because you made the next $1 million. That might work for some people. They might be able to push through, make that $1 million, and then business goes fine after that. Everything just keeps going up and up and up and never takes a downside. But for most people, that's not the case. The vast majority of people. And the reason for that is because when we just push really hard to make a goal happen, we haven't built the foundations for consistent success. So leveling up is not about just hitting a number. Leveling up is not about hitting a goal. Leveling up is truly about making the habits and the routines, the systems in our businesses second nature, making it just reflexive. It's just what we do. It's just how we do it. And when those habits and routines are the ones that give you the results that you want, being those goals, then that is when you actually level up. See, goals are just a different set of results than what we're currently getting now. So the habits and routines we have today are really what's giving us the results that we're getting now. So we need a different set of rituals. We need to be doing things differently on a consistent basis to be able to get those consistent new results. And there's a great book out there called The 12-Week Year. I really love the focus on getting away from, okay, we've got our annual goals, right? A lot of people do some annual goal planning, but that puts things way too far out in advance. One of the great points in the 12-week year is that a lot of people will hit their sales goal kind of towards the end. They'll make that final push towards the end of the year. So you'll see them doing okay the first few quarters, but whenever it comes to Q4, they're scrambling. They're looking at their numbers and saying, oh my gosh, I still got like 20, 30, 40% to do in this last quarter, when they should have been doing the consistent actions that it takes to get consistent growth in their book of business. Now we're talking about a salesperson here, or maybe a sales leader, or maybe a sales professional. I see a lot of people who have been in sales for 30, 40, 50 years act that way. No joke. But it's the same way for a business owner. As a business owner, we don't just have sales to think about, right? We have everything to think about. And of course, on a day-by-day basis, we're looking at the bank account, making sure that we get enough money to pay. I mean, it's an easy trap to get into that a lot of business owners get stuck in. So there's this pull in between, I'm just focused on the daily and how much is in my bank account, can I pay these bills, to Yeah, man, I would really love to hit that $1 million later this year, but I'm gonna have to get around to those things kind of later on that are gonna help me to get there because I just got to focus on today. It's just too much. But we've got this huge vision that we want to create, this huge vision that we want to see happen, that we want to make happen. But sometimes it just seems like all we're doing is like we're pushing and pushing, and there's like this revenue roller coaster up and down and back and forth, and that is a result of not having the habits of success. Another book that I really, really like is by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits, and he really gets into the science of building consistent habits. And I want you to think of your business as an organization, and that organization is kind of like an organism. And the systems within that organization are like habits and rituals and routines in an organism. So think about this. If well, some of you might be some pretty young guys that aren't affected too much by what you eat, or at least you think you're not affected too much by what you eat on a day by day basis. Maybe you wake up and you're like, oh man, I'm just tired today. I don't know why. But there are those days when we work really hard overnight and then the next day we're tired, we're struggling, we're pushing to make through, and then we try to catch up with it on another night. I mean, I know I've been there, and you know what? Sometimes I still find myself there. Sometimes old habits do die hard. I mean, I'm a human being, like everybody else, always working on my own personal growth, of course. But I know what I've found for myself and for my clients that I coach is that when we have that consistency, we have more consistency on how we feel on a daily basis. If we're getting a good sleep routine, if we're getting good exercise routine, if we're getting a good diet, a good meal, and when you feel better on a consistent basis, you also think better on a consistent basis. You also act better. Like when somebody shows up to your door or whenever you walk into a store, and somebody just has that positive energy, doesn't it kind of catch on, right? It kind of gives you a little bit of positive energy. Now, of course, yeah, I mean, maybe it's a little bit too over the top energy, and I've definitely seen that, maybe even been guilty of it a time or two, but it does catch on, and people see that, and people love to be served and supported and sold to by people with a smile, people with positive energy. So it even comes down to just even the look on your face, the look in your eye, and what you bring to the table on a day by day basis. So we cannot overemphasize enough this idea of focusing each quarter on building a new habit routine that will give you the results that you want this year, that will help you 10 years from now, because that is so many higher levels above where we're at now if we learn how to do this. So I've learned from some of the greats such as again, the 12-week years fantastic book. I mean, Tim Ferriss, even more recently within the past year or so, Andrew Huberman and John Maxwell, and I mean, you always have to be focusing on now, how do I bring in the right information? How do I grow? And that's because we also have to have this mental diet that we're bringing in. We have to be paying attention to the thoughts that we have because those beliefs lead to our behaviors. And so, just like the actions that we take are habits, the beliefs, the thoughts that we have are also habitual. And we can't get consistent results as an outward physical expression consistently unless we are doing the work of the mental health. We're doing the work of how we choose to show up. We're doing the work of how we choose to interpret events in our lives so that they either slow us down or they don't they don't bother us quite like they used to, right? or we wake up with more energy during the day, because instead of waking up going, oh, it's another day, we make the choice. We make an empowering decision to say, no, I'm going to view this day as an opportunity to thrive. I'm going to use this day as an opportunity to impact the world. See, when I work with my clients, we of course have we work on the systems for scaling a business, scaling up a business. As you might know, I'm part of the scaling up coaches community as well. But we also take time each quarter to do some personal business leader planning. And so we take a step back and we do an assessment. Do an assessment of where are we right now? And I like to first even look at what habits do we observe? When are we waking up? When are we eating lunch? Where are we eating lunch? Are we just scarfing food real quick while we're doing 5 other things? Or are we taking some time to slow down, get a good, healthy ingestion of a diet, and then maybe even giving ourselves some time to reflect on the morning? I found you might have found that around 2 or 3 o'clock, there's a huge dip in energy. I think part of that is just because all the morning of the go, 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 go kind of hits us. But if we take some time in the middle of the day to just kind of quietly reflect, it could be meditation, it could just be some quiet reflection, maybe some journaling. Just allow yourself to kind of process and take some of the weight of the morning off your shoulders. Then that helps us to have more energy as we go into the day, because we kind of remove some of that stuff and we're okay, this is kind of a fresh start after lunch. So being able to take that time to kind of reset. So we look at these habits. What are we doing? When are we going to sleep? How much sleep are we getting? We just got a new puppy for Christmas, so my sleep schedule's been a little bit messed up the the past couple weeks. So sometimes we have those things in our lives that kind of throw some things off, but I'm trying to teach the puppy is an organism, trying to teach him the systems of the organization of the household, of the habits and routines. But we need to look at what are we doing on a consistent basis. When we wake up, do we roll over and do we turn off the alarm? I'm getting back into a routine of doing a Bible study in the morning with a friend of mine. I had found that I would get up and I would read the Bible, but I wasn't. I would oftentimes kind of just be slower in the day. Sometimes I would turn off the alarm. I was getting out of some of these good habits that were helping me before, and just kind of with some of the disruptions of things that were going on, I was getting out of it. I that's why you have to do this on a consistent basis to see what you might be falling out of. And so by looking at what habits are serving us and what are not serving us, what's taking away from what we're trying to build, is key. Doing the self-assessment every quarter helps you to understand, am I continuing to build in the direction that I want to go, or am I starting to backslide a little bit? So once you take a look at that, then we can start saying, okay, these are some of the pain points, and we can start diving a little bit deeper. Also want to look at, what am I grateful for this quarter? What happened that really energized me and that really helped build me up, and and is taking me in the right direction. It's important any time you are doing any sort of assessment, look for those moments of gratitude, because those are important for adding some positive energy into the work that we have to do to dig a little bit deeper. Again, sometimes we kind of have to play little mental games and tricks on ourselves too, because some of this deeper work is hard and it takes time and it takes energy. But if we can take some time to remember the things that we're grateful for, to bring energy into this planning, into this work that we're doing, then we've got kind of that buffer. We've got kind of that momentum that'll take us into this. So it's important to be able to take that some time. So we look at our habits and routines, we look at some of our successes and what we've been grateful for, and we say, okay, what can we build upon that is going to serve us better, serve us more? And I like looking at it as to what serves us as opposed to what's good or bad, because most of the habits, routines that we picked up did kind of serve us at some point in time, whether it was to help us to deal with an issue. I mean, maybe even we were going through some tough times. So just the bad habit of what we normally call a bad habit of turning off the alarm was actually something that kind of served us because we weren't getting enough sleep and our bodies needed it. Or maybe we just needed a little bit more time to kind of process the previous day. And or maybe we just didn't have the energy, and so we just needed to sleep a little bit more to have that energy. And so in some respect, it kind of served us in terms of where we were at and what needed to happen. But if it doesn't serve our goals and where we want to go, that's where we're saying, okay, it's not bad, because we don't want to necessarily beat ourselves up for that. We want to just let that go and be thankful, even have some gratitude for how it served us in the past, and some gratitude for how we are now able to see that, appreciate it, but then let it go. Another part of the assessment is, where are we in terms of balancing the wheel of life? Now, I've got 12 different factors that we work on with each of these quarterly planning sessions. We call them Plan to Thrive, because if we're going to thrive, if we're really going to live that best life, we really need to be very intentional about it. Whether you're a spiritual person or not, you know, even the Bible talks about the importance of having a plan, having a strategy on things. So having some sort of understanding of like what areas of our life are going really, really well and what are not. So we look at these 12 different factors, things like money and finance, your spiritual and connectedness, your relationships and your surroundings, recreation. Where are you with your family, your friends, your finances? So we look at these different areas, and we actually have a little wheel. If you can imagine a wheel with some spokes, with each of these factors as being one of those spokes, and you mark on the wheel from the 0 to the 10 where you feel like you're at. 10 being the most awesomest, the best of where you could possibly be. And we do a little bit of planning on like what that might look like kind of before this, but it's important on that wheel of life. So you can actually kind of see where are you deflated a little bit. Because if you think about it, like when we're moving in life and we're kind of okay at an okay pace, well, when we hit one of those flat areas, it kind of like a speed bump, right? It kind of slows us down, slows down our momentum. And even if we have to focus on just maybe one or two of those areas per quarter, I really recommend just kind of focusing on one as you're getting into the habit of building good habits. It still allows us to see, okay, what do we need to be intentional about? And as business leader, guess what? Even though some of these things might not be strictly business, you can't have business performance without human performance. And guess what? The highest human performance for long-term consistency, you have to pay attention to all these things. I was actually just reading an article the other day, and just one of these classic examples of this young gentleman. He was in his 20s and he built a big business and won some awards and was looking really, really strong from the outside. But more often than not, those folks are struggling with their relationships. This gentleman was struggling with suicide. Even Tim Ferriss talks about how he struggled with suicide for many years and still sometimes struggles with that. And I love that he's open with that, because a lot of people again think that, hey, just because you've made it or just because you bring positive energy, and I mean, look at Robin Williams. Robin Williams made people laugh and smile and just feel good about themselves. But he had some dark times too. So we have to take some time to be real about where we're at and figure out, where do we need to focus? Where do we need to be intentional? Because if we want the consistent results, if we really truly want to level up, then we have to create a wheel that's pretty well balanced, that can keep that momentum going and going and going. That's the part of having those systems, right? So we do the wheel of life, then we take some time to really look at what are our goals. So we think about what is a 10 in each of these areas, those 12 areas, like I said, and we bring it back to, we kind of boil it down, or we kind of try to start to, maybe a better way to say it is visualize what that looks like by creating goals. What are our 10 year goals? And I like to call those big, hairy, audacious goals. What's cool is scaling up. They also refer to it as big, hairy, audacious goals. You might have heard the 10x rule. Sometimes people look at that. I think it could even be bigger than 10, maybe 30 times, because we really, really underestimate what we can do in a decade, but really, really overestimate what we can do in a year. So let's be scary with those 10 years goals. Let's be crazy with those 10-year goals. And we bring it back to the 3-year goals. Those are still a little bit, out there, still a little bit bigger than what we think is really possible. And then 1 year. Look at those 1-year goals and just a little bit outside the bounds of some stretch. We want them to be stretch goals, but not outside the realms of possible, because we want to focus, especially when you start doing this, kind of quarterly planning, this quarterly assessment, and this quarterly building habits upon habits on habits and leveling up, it does have a compound effect. But when we first do this, we want to focus more on the consistency of the doing on the daily, as opposed to winning the big number that we're shooting for, because it's not about the big number. If we focus too much on that big number or that big goal, then when we hit it, we're likely to just celebrate and then kind of go back to our old things, our old ways of doing things. I mean, that's one of the challenges I see with 75 hard, which I think is fantastic for a lot of folks. I think it's great showing you that when you put your mind to something, you can achieve more than you thought you could. But I see most people on day 76, celebrating that they achieved the 75 by opening up a can of beer, going out and get their favorite pizza. And then guess what? That happens again on day 77, 78, 79. There are a few people, the very, very few people, who do make it a way of life. But for most, it's just not consistent. It's not relatable. It's not something they can make a habit for their entire life. That's just not the way that they want to live. But even more than that is because they focused more on that day 75, achieving that day 75. And so it wasn't about the daily success. It wasn't about the sense of leveling up. It was just about the sense of achieving and knocking that goal out of the park, and then going right back to the way of life, because they're going to focus on another thing. It's not going to be so much the health or whatever. It's going to be something else. And so they kind of put that on the wayside because they were focusing on a different thing. And that might not, they might not see how that 75 hard helps them with that next thing. So that's why we want to really figure out, okay, if we take this 1-year plan and we're building it into, or building backwards now into our 90-day goals of the habits that we're building. I'm sorry that I'm saying habits so much, but I want you to have the habit of thinking about habits. So, I think it's important, right? So there's the 90 days, bringing it back into the 90 days. Okay. And then we do the values check-in. If we look at our 90-day priorities, and we look at some people call those rocks in the entrepreneurial operating system. They call those rocks. But effectively, those 90-day priorities, we have to come back and do a values check. Do these align with what our values are? And are we going to build a plan that's going to be in the bounds of those values? See, values are not just some ethereal art on the wall or whatever. Values are really our expectations that we have for ourselves and for others in terms of that right behavior, the right ways of doing things, the right and the wrong. And if we start doing things just for the sake of hitting a goal that really aren't in line with our values, or if we don't even really understand our values, it can lead to a lot of internal conflicts and a lot of conflicts with other people that we don't necessarily fully understand why, because we aren't in tune with these. So it's important to think about who inspires you most, and who's made you feel the most joy, but then also who's hurt you the most. What moments have you felt the most joy, excitement, hope? What moments have you felt the most fear, or being the most offended, betrayed? Because those are typically the times whenever your values were the most activated. And then we go through, I have this list of like 670 some odd values, one of them being Oxford comma, because I think Oxford commas are very important. And if you'd like to have a discussion about that, feel free to email me and we can discuss Oxford commas. I'll give you 10 million reasons why Oxford commas are important, but that's for another time, maybe a lesson on communication, right? So we want to bring that and do that values checking because we want to make sure that we're doing things the right ways for the right reasons. Okay. And then we start building in SMART goals. Now, I love the concept of fast goals. Fast goals are they're really more ambitious, but SMART goals are more about being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. I like these because as people are working on building up this 90-day habit of planning, building the rituals and the routines and the systems, we want to make sure that we're doing it. All right, we want to get in the consistency of doing it. So we want to see, we have to trick our brains into seeing the evidence of this being successful and of this helping us so that it rewards us internally and our unconscious embraces it more. So that's really important to embrace these SMART goals around these 90-day priorities. So we really focus on that and we break down, what are the obstacles to that? What steps can I take to get around those and make those things happen? Okay. Another important aspect is I love looking at what are our biggest fears. So as we were looking at the goal action plan, some of those obstacles that come up might be related to some fears that we have. And so we have a process I brought from I not bought, but I brought from Tim Ferriss, fear setting. Check out his video on fear setting. Very, very powerful. And then we bring it back down into, okay, so if there are those fears, there are some self-limiting beliefs, and we have to do the work to do some thought retraining, some belief retraining, to start figuring out where are those unconscious points where we're stuck. In the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, they talk about the money thermometer. We have that in every area of our life, not just in money, but there's always this thermometer saying, "Oh, this is the right way of living." And if we go beyond that, our subconscious, and there might be some spiritual elements too, but I know that there for sure, our subconscious actually did my undergrad thesis on this, on self-limiting beliefs and self-handicapping. But our subconscious will start tripping us up in ways that will bring us back to homeostasis and what we think our life should be based on our old way of living, based on our old beliefs. So we have to start identifying those limiting beliefs and giving ourselves empowering decisions, empowering thoughts, empowering resolutions. So if somebody has a goal of making $100,000 for the first time, they might have a belief of, well, I've never made 100,000. I don't know how to do that. So an empowering decision or resolution might be, I easily earn over $100,000 every year, or I have the resources. I know the people. It could even start there. I have the people in my life that help me. Don't say will, but make it now. But help me make $100,000 regularly. It's just a way of reframing things, and you use those every day. I suggest morning, noon, night, before you're going to sleep, especially. And anytime you start hitting or anytime those negative beliefs, those self-limiting beliefs start coming up, you start learn how to recognize and say, you know what? No, that's not the way I choose to believe. That does not serve me and my goals any longer. And that is the big part of what we do for the quarterly planning. Then we take that and we put that into our calendars, and we've got a tracking system for making sure that we're creating these habits. And what are we doing that's going to support these goals? What are we doing that's going to support these empowering decisions and these empowering resolutions? But I can't urge you enough. Take the time each quarter and say, you know what can I focus on that is achievable? What habit can I build? And then build upon from quarter to quarter. And that will lead you to greater success this year and true leveling up from one year to the next. And you'll find yourself a whole different person at the end of it, living a whole different life. But that is the element of success. I mean, you still have some core elements of who you are, but it's about becoming the the kind of person, having the identity of the person who consistently does the things to give you the results that you want to have in your life, that achieve the goals that you want to have in your life. So I hope that's helpful. It's very powerful if you actually do it, but that is the key to doing it. But it starts with that first habit of just taking a look each quarter, even if you didn't do it last quarter, or maybe if you even didn't hold to your habits last quarter, keep pushing yourself quarter to quarter and make that consistent. And then eventually you'll start catching in and just focusing on one thing at a time. So appreciate you being with me this week, and look forward to seeing you next week. We do have this new time, 4 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Central, and look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks. Thank you for being with us today. But now is the time to put what we talked about into practice. Remember, your family, employees, and community are depending on you to rise up and win. The great news is you're not alone. You're part of a resurgence of entrepreneurs who are ready to take their business, life, and impact to the next level, and we're going to do it together. This show is powered by Time for Success, where we help business owners every day who want more freedom and wealth while building a legacy of positive impact. Please follow Time for Success on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for more helpful strategies and tools for creating the business and life of your dreams.